Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of our podcast called
Can I Call You Dad?
Can I Call You Dad?
You do that every time. You just look at me like I have to say everything.
Well, because it doesn't make sense for me to tell you, can I call you Dad, does it?
Someone's calling you Dad.
Yeah, someone's calling you Dad somewhere. I just haven't found the DNA sample yet.
Pretty
Dad.
much.
Anyway, we're here after Super Bowl Sunday, and if you recall our last episode, we talked about the Super Bowl.
That's right.
We did a little thing about snacks.
That's
we
right.
did a thing about favorite memories,
That's
how
right.
the halftime show started.
Yeah, best halftime show.
And you didn't know any of it, but that's okay.
I knew all of it.
This was a good half. I liked the Usher's halftime show, and a lot of people on Facebook were saying they didn't like. I thought it was in my top five. It's in my top five.
I'm glad you have a top five, and you have the time to make a top five.
Yeah. But I did pick. I made the wrong pick. I picked the 49ers. You picked the Chiefs. It looked like the 49ers were going to pull it off in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter.
I told you whether he's down or ahead, he'll figure out the fourth quarter. That's what happened, man.
But you were wrong about one thing. Purdy did not throw an interception.
I was waiting
and
for it.
You kept saying he was going to throw an interception.
I was waiting for it. I know, we watched the game together.
We watched the game together.
The best part was how fearful you were when someone showed up with a dog.
No, that wasn't fearful. That was just being cautious.
Cautious.
When you've been bitten in the area that I've been bitten in, and you see a large dog, you get rather cautious.
That explains a lot.
We might want to introduce
wait a minute.
the God voice
there. Was that Brent?
No,
that was not.
It's
Brent.
not Brent, folks. No, it's not.
That was recently on-air weather procrastinator.
It is Lent.
It is Lent.
Our good friend, and it's Lent. Mr. Andy Avalos is here with us today. Welcome, Andy.
Is that who's here?
That's who's here. You're here.
You're our first. What was I doing here, and what is this for?
These are microphones. You're probably used to.
He's not used to
He's used to the microphones
and a little remote control to make the weather graphics
It's like on
move.
steroids.
Yeah, it is.
This is a big mic.
It helps me sound better, and it helps magnify his tiny little,
everything.
Going back to the dog bite.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, we should introduce Andy correctly. Andy, obviously, for those of you who don't know, which would be like 1% of the country probably, certainly everybody in the Chicago area and Denver knows him. Andy was a weather forecaster, meteorologist on Channel 7 back in 1985 when I met Andy. Actually, I met Andy in 1986. I started in October of 85 at ABC, and we met around January of 1986. It's one of the first talents that I met at WLS. And it was WLS at the time. Now it's ABC TV. But and we hit it off. We became not only colleagues, respectful colleagues to each other, and but we became really good friends.
That's right. We actually did the Super Bowl Shuffle together.
We did do the Super Bowl Shuffle, absolutely. And one of my favorite Andy stories, and then we'll ask him a few questions after this. Well, because this will tell you what a caring and loving man Andy is, aside from a great meteorologist. I had a poker party at my house when we lived in Elmwood Park, and Andy was one of the guests invited to play, all guys. And of course, Mom went out to do something with her friends, and I had you. You were about 8 or 9 months old, I'm guessing. And so Andy's the first one. Andy's always either on time or early. He's very punctual. And I'm holding you and try to make some dip and chips and stuff like that. And Andy walks in and he says, "Oh, why don't let me help you? Let me hold the baby while you're doing all this." I said, "Oh, that'd be great." So I'm in the kitchen. Andy takes you and goes in the living room and sits down, and it's under a minute. I'm easily under a minute. I hear from the living room, "You can get him now," because I think you had a moment.
I have moments now.
Not to mess either the show up, but you had a moment.
Yeah.
And I think that was
just one
might
moment.
have been one of the first babies Andy ever held. So
yeah.
Well, for that long, anyway.
For that long,
right?
So
for that short.
No, for that long.
for that
long. Yeah. I think
everything else was wait. No, I'll pass. Really, I don't. What do I do with that thing?
Yeah. So your claim to fame was you were the first baby held by Andy Avalos.
There you go.
Well, here's a question I think a lot of people have. I had this question for years, and I asked you this question a long time ago, and you had a really great answers. What is the difference between partly cloudy and mostly sunny? Because when it's partly cloudy, it's mostly sunny, and when it's mostly sunny, it's partly cloudy. So what the hell's the difference? Why don't you guys just
what a
pick
dick.
one?
Yeah, it's a percentage of how much of the sky is covered. It's
Right.
broken
Yeah,
down.
but I only get a little bit of sky. I don't see the whole sky. I live in Orland Park. I get like a tenth of the
That's
sky.
right. And therein lies part of the problem, because remember, you live in a particular area. If the viewers can see this tabletop, for example, let's assume this is the entire Chicago metropolitan area.
Sure.
Well, here's where you are right there.
Yeah.
So we're not just forecasting for you,
Right.
we're forecasting for this entire area. So if we say that the day is going to be a partly sunny day, it's based on sky cover and octaves
Yeah.
broken down into a percentage of how much of the area is going to see blue sky versus how much is going to see cloud cover. So partly cloudy actually for the Weather Service indicates more sun than clouds.
Right.
Which is a bit confusing. You think it's a partly sunny or mostly sunny, but
Right.
it's the other way around. So partly sunny does indicate that there's enough breaks in the clouds that you're going to get some sunshine. More sun than clouds. Mostly sunny indicates that probably 70% of the day or a given area will see sunshine, but there'll be at least some cloud cover during the course of the day. And then sunny means no clouds.
Right. Or sunny a chair.
Or sun.
Could mean that too.
I got you, babe.
What's a favorite weather story? You got a favorite weather story? I mean, I have a lot of great stories about you and I, but what's a funny or favorite weather story?
I don't know that I got anything off the top of my head. I don't know.
I mean, I don't think there's anything in Pueblo that because it's basically it's going to snow or it's not in Colorado. That's all people want to hear.
Well, I think that the funnier stories are kind of what you just related about.
Yeah,
People always say, I could be a weatherman. You guys are wrong half the time and you still get paid. Well, that's always the wrong thing to say to me, because
Yeah. Oh,
I've got a whole diatribe
I know.
worked around that. So whenever they say that, I'll say, well, maybe years ago that might have been true. But decades later, nothing could be further from the truth.
Yeah,
I said the accuracy rate for most people who do what I did for a living, on-air meteorologists, were probably in that 85 to 95 percentile per day in a 24-hour period.
Yep.
Still in that 80 to 85%, 48 hours out. And then going 72 hours out, we're probably still within a 75 to 80% ratio of being spot on. After that, when you start getting out to 5 days and 7 days and 10 days, it goes down. And when you get into a longer range forecast, it really is more about a trend than it is a specific day. So I can tell you that with some degree of accuracy, it's going to be trending colder, it's going to be trending warmer or wetter or a snowier period. But on, let's say today, the 25th of a given month, that on the 16th of the next month, it's going to be this specific, going to be sunny and it's going to be 42. That I can't do.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that the trend into the following month looks like it's going to be colder with well below average temperatures. And that's probably the best we could do going that far out. But it is pretty accurate.
But this we had a really mild winter, but this February has been crazy. I mean, who could have predicted 58 degrees last week? This is weird, right?
Well, it's not weird
Pretty
because
much.
if you go back and look at statistics, almost any given month has record-breaking something.
Yeah.
Whether it's a high or it's a low, or precipitation or lack thereof, or the amount of snow. So it's not really out of the ordinary at all when people say, wow, this is really unusual. Well, if you look at the statistics, that would prove that this happens more often than you think it does.
Yeah.
It's just that you only live in the moment. And today's weather.
Orland Park.
Yes.
I live in Orland Park, Andy, right by you.
But when people would ask me questions about that, there's so many different things you can't remember them all.
Yeah.
Okay.
You asked me a favorite joke or weather story of
Yeah,
some
there's
sort.
too much.
When I'm asked about severe weather events or the most significant weather events, having just had Valentine's Day take place, we had two major storms take place for Valentine's Day in the past 20 years.
Right.
The Valentine's Day blizzard, and then we had two of those, and then we had the Groundhog Day blizzard.
Right.
And then all the other snowstorms in between. Well, to pick out any one of those specifically and remember the day is hard to do. But if I, trigger a memory, like if you remember all of the cars backed up on Lakeshore Drive where it was shut down, that's a recall for most people. That was such an iconic memory that you can pull it up just like that. And the Plainfield tornado would be another example of that.
Right.
So the deadly heat wave in the 90s, in the city when all the people died. I mean, those are the kinds of things that, those things you do remember.
Yeah.
But along the way, there were dozens of those events. It's just that those are the ones at the pinnacle of, of what happened.
Now, you and I found this out. I've known you forever, but I didn't know until maybe 3 years ago that we're both veterans.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
When he said service time just now, it's like...
Yeah, he served in the Army, though. I served in the Navy, a little higher up.
No, it's
than the
not.
Army.
Although you have to repeat the line that you told me again when we went to the breakfast. Was it just a week or so ago? The veterans about the Marines and what the Navy did.
Yeah, I said the Navy, we were the original Uber. We would drive the Marines and the Army guys to the war, and then we tell them, we'll be back in a year to pick you up.
Well, you
Just give us a ring.
Well, not drive.
Drive.
You
We would
sail.
Get them, we drove them there. You're still on a boat. We'd get them, we float them over to
Float 'em.
Vietnam.
Yeah, there
and
you
we'd
go.
put them on LST, send them into the shore, and then we'd come back and pick them up. And we didn't charge though. We didn't have any money for it. So.
And this is one of my funniest memories of your dad when he said this to me. You were in the Navy and you couldn't
Swim.
Well, not only that, like I think all of his time in the Navy was just driving
I never drove the
cars
boat.
on the boat, right?
No, I never. I was a ship's driver for a while,
Yes.
which was really cool. So when we pulled into a port, we had a really young captain who brought his 1957 convertible Thunderbird on board, and every time we pulled into port, we'd unload it, and then I'd get to drive him around, which was really
Yes.
cool.
Nice.
That was
Hero.
cool.
I just
But
thought
did
that was
very
really-
little. Andy did more than I did.
I'm
and
sure he
didn't
did.
do that much.
I just really thought that was odd. Wait, how can you be in the Navy and not swim or
You
know
would
how to
think that'd
swim?
be a requirement.
Maybe a requirement,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't
It is a
know.
requirement.
And his comeback was perfect. He said, well, how many people are in the Air Force and don't fly?
Right.
Well, that's true, but
Right.
you're in a boat. You're out in the middle of the ocean. You know,
Right.
in the Air Force, you can still be on the ground
Right.
and have a full career.
Only the people in the planes are in the air.
That's right.
But all you have for Navy boot camp is like the easiest boot camp ever.
What did you do?
I mean, we would sit in our barracks and watch the Marines march for hours and hours and hours while our company commander was at McDonald's bringing us food. I swear to God, we had like more McDonald's. I gained weight in boot camp, which is so unusual. I went in at 140. I came out at 143.
Are you still in boot camp?
No, but I'm still gaining weight.
Well,
But
you're
all
still
you
on the
had to do-
Navy training.
In Navy boot camp, the only requirement was that you become a third-class swimmer, which means that you can tread water for 5 minutes, which
in
I
a
did.
tub.
In
That's a
no,
third class. I
Olympic-
didn't know I was a
Olympic
third
pool,
class swimmer.
20 feet deep. And so you had to tread water, and you had to swim the length of the pool on your back. Didn't matter. You just had to get from one to the end.
Okay.
So I did that. Once I did it, you only have to do it once. They were like, okay, you're certified. We're
It's
going
like
to
the
move you
NFL
on.
combine. You only got to do it once, and you're drafted.
But we were out at I was out at sea on two boats a lot, like where you don't see land forever. We had a lot of guys from the South. I joined the Navy back when there was a program that if you got arrested, you had a choice. You could join the military or you could go to jail. We had a lot of those guys in my company from the South, and we'd anchor out at sea, like way out at sea. The water's, I don't know, how far would it be, 3-4 miles. And we put 3 rowboats out in the water with one guy manning the boat and one guy with an M16 in each boat. And these knuckleheads from the South, they were jumping from the superstructure of the ship, which is like jumping from a skyscraper, into the water. And they're like, ain't you going to come jump with us? I'm like, listen, first of all, I can't swim. Second of all,
They said, what? You're in the Navy.
Well, you can tread water for 5
you see
minutes.
those guys out there with the M16s in the boats? They're not looking for tuna. All right? They're looking for sharks. You idiots. Get back in the boat where it's safe. And the first thing I would do, I was on 2 ships. First thing I did on both ships, was find out where the captain's gig is. Because every boat has a motorboat in the middle of the ship, usually, attached to a crane. And this whole captain goes down with the ship is bullshit. Because the first thing that goes in the water,
It's the
if the ship
captain's,
is
yeah.
going down, is the boat, the captain's boat.
Yeah.
And I already told the captain on both ships, I just want you to know, you're going to have company. When that boat goes over in that crane, you're going to have company. I'll do whatever you want me to do, but I'm going to be on that boat.
You'll show up with a sandwich.
I show up with whatever he wanted. I'm like, because the way it works is the captain goes off on the captain's gig in the water, and the executive officer, lucky him, gets to stay on the sinking boat and run everything from the boat. So the captain, the coward that he is out on the boat with me, by the way, is out on the water safe. And the XO is running the abandoned ship.
So let's get some other questions here. You're retired now.
He's
Yes.
retired.
What's the best part of being retired?
Hanging with me.
I don't think that's the best part.
Ding,
I
ding,
think
ding, we have a winner.
I don't think that's in the top 10.
Well, it's surely going to be on my list of favorite things, but you're right. It's not at the top of the list.
No.
I don't want to burst your bubble, buddy, but
Maybe in the top 100.
well,
I
you
think
know-
it's also on the list
Maybe.
of nothing else to do. Annivar.
Somewhere in there, getting a colonoscopy.
That's right, which is happening next week. But we'll talk about that later. Actually, the very first thing, whenever I'm asked that question, is I no longer have to get up at midnight.
Yeah.
I don't think people know how early you had to get up.
Yeah.
Or how early he had to go to bed, because I tried
Yeah,
calling him
that's
at 7 one night.
First of all,
And his lovely daughter told me he's already in bed. I'm like,
I've
it's
known
7
Andy-
o'clock.
I've known Andy all my life, and when he told me one time, call me between a certain time and a certain time. I never missed that time. You're one of his closest friends, and you miss that time all the time. He literally gave you a
He'd call.
timer.
I'd say,
No,
look
no
at your
way.
watch. What time is it?
Yeah.
What
You're
do you
in
think
bed.
I am? I'm
I
in
missed
bed.
it. I missed it once. But he did check his phone to see that it was me because I called twice. And he told me the next day he was very tempted to call me on his ride into downtown at 1 a.m.
Yeah, I know.
What was you're in bed? What are you doing in bed? It's 1 a.m.
Was there just no cars at that time?
Yeah, very little traffic. I always thought
Yeah.
that the expressway was made for me because I'd go up. I lived in the south suburbs in Orland Park, and
Yeah.
I'd go up LaGrange Road,
Yeah.
and I'd take the Stevenson in, then Lakeshore Drive, and then I'd go into the tower underneath.
Yeah.
So if I saw 20 cars,
It's a busy day.
that would be a lot.
Yeah.
Just nothing. And I
But
love that because
Yeah.
even having to drive into the city was tolerable because I could get there
Right.
lickety split.
Yeah.
And only on those rare occasions when there was construction or an
Yeah.
accident
Mhm.
did I get backed up.
Yeah.
But never once was I late to work or miss a show,
That's awesome.
you know.
Have you ever gotten mistaken for someone else?
Yes.
I get that all the time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do.
I do too. I get George
No,
Clooney
you
on.
don't. You don't get
George
anybody.
Clooney. We know yours.
Yeah, Danny DeVito, maybe.
That's right, Dan DeVito.
I do
Who have
get
you-
George Clooney
who have you
from
gotten-
blind people.
Who have you got mistaken for?
Actually, there's a guy who, well, he's not in town anymore, and he left some time ago, and it was in, I think he worked for one of the networks. I forget now.
Okay.
But his name was Jim Avila.
Oh yeah, Jimmy. Yeah.
Jim
And
Avila.
so
Okay.
Jim.
there was some similar features.
You didn't look alike though.
I didn't think we did, but I would hear that a lot of people
Yeah.
would say, hey, you're Jim Avila. And I'm sure I can say,
Right.
because I asked everybody, he says, yeah. I say, hey, aren't you Andy Avila's? No, I'm Jim Avila.
Right.
So, yeah, that was probably the one, at least here in the metro
What a
area.
Baker Square girl. Got you confused too.
With who?
Well, that was a great story. I don't know if you want me to tell it or not.
Yeah,
it was,
go
a,
ahead.
Yeah.
it was a wonderful story. Andy, and I think it was Ann at the time when you were dating, and Doris, your mom and I, we went out to do something, and then on the way back we were kind of hungry, so we said, well, we'll drop you guys off at the house, and then Andy and I we'll go to Baker Square. They're open late, and we'll get a couple sandwiches and maybe a pie. So we go to Baker Square on Harlem Avenue, and we make our order. And there's a big counter with the pies, and we're sitting down. And this young girl comes up by the register. And she's looking over, and she says to Andy, "Are you on TV?" And Andy says, "Yes, I am." And she says, "What?" He says, "Yes, I'm on TV." So she goes away, and she comes back. She goes, "Do you do the weather?" And then he says, "Yes, I do the weather." And she says, "What?" And he says, "I do the weather." And then she comes back and she says, "Are you on Channel 5? And he says, "No, I'm on Channel 7. She says, "What?" And Andy goes, "I'm on Channel 7. What are you, deaf?" And she walks around the corner and comes over. She's got 2 hearing aids. She goes, "Yes, I am." I had to go in the parking lot because I was laughing so hard. I didn't want to sit next to Andy and laugh. So I went in the parking lot, was just cracking up. But then the sequel, because there's a sequel with Andy, is you were at Toys R Us. And you could tell this story.
No, I can't. I don't have the recall of the details. I just don't.
He
But
calls
very
me up.
similar line.
He says, "You're not going to believe this." I go, "What?" He goes, "Anna and I were at Toys R Us. We're looking for some gifts. We're looking for a toy that, one of those popular toys that we used to have to hunt for you guys. They can't find it." So they're walking around, and you can see through the shelves, and they see a guy, and he's opening a box that had the name of the toy. So Andy, of course, goes, "Hey, excuse me, hello, excuse me." And the guy's not answering it on. He goes, "Excuse me." And another guy comes up and he goes, "Hey, I'm trying to get a hold of this guy. What is he, deaf?" And the guy goes, "Yes, he is." So within 2 weeks, right? That happened within 2 weeks of each other.
Back to back.
Wow.
What are the odds
Yeah.
of that? Well, again, the shelves, he was on the other side, so I couldn't get to him.
Yeah.
And so there was a doorway. I guess I could have gone through there. It wouldn't have made any difference. I'd have gone
You
back
scared
there.
the shit out
I
of
probably
him.
would have scared the hell out of him. What do you
Yeah.
want? So yeah, all that for a Christmas toy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I don't ever ask that question anymore. If they don't hear me, I just
You just keep
move on.
moving. Yeah, that's what I do.
I'm not going to
I
ever
had
do
a-
that again.
I had a lady, I was out to eat. I had a lady and her whole family come over. I said, can we take photos with you? I take photos with all these people. I'm on cloud 9,
Mhm.
right? And then they leave. They go, I can't believe we met Brett Eldridge. And I heard it. And the sinking feeling, just, and I just kind of like left. And I was like, okay, well,
Although
I'm not going to go tell them
Yeah.
and ruin that moment.
Yeah, you don't want to do that for them.
But there's a photo out there.
Somebody
Some
will.
family going, look, we got Brad Eldridge. He's a lot shorter in real life.
Yeah, the best one with you, he played Great America when he
Oh,
was
come
first
on,
starting out.
man.
Come on.
I hate this story.
And these 4 young girls come over and they're like, "Can we have a picture?"
yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, absolutely, yeah." And
I-
he was
well,
a new artist, and
I
I
had
could
just
see him.
performed too in
Yeah,
front of
just
a lot
performed.
of people, so I figured they
And
want to
they,
take a photo with me.
Yeah, so they're like,
They hand me
he's
the
got his-
camera.
they hand him the camera. They
I
just
was
wanted
there for
him to
that.
take a picture.
I was up there. I saw one
You
of your
might have
shows
been.
there. So,
You might
but
have been
go ahead.
there.
But they just wanted him to take a picture.
So then the four of them
with the
got
roller
together, and I'm
coaster behind.
holding the camera. And then to make things worse, like, look, if this just happened by myself, it's not a story. The worst part is that my friends and my father all watched this exchange happen. So I'm standing next to them because they gave me free tickets to let everyone go ride.
Mhm.
That was like the coolest thing I could do.
That
for
was
my
all you
friends
got.
back then.
That and
yeah,
and a
I
sandwich.
actually never got paid. That's why I don't play at Six Flags anymore. But anyway, so that was their thing. So I said, okay, I'll do it, get in front of some people. But my friends will go on all the rides as much as they want. They had the whole day.
Mhm.
So we were all together. And these 4 girls ran. They didn't like walk up. They ran. And I was like, absolutely, I can take a photo with you. It's the least of my worries. And then they handed me the camera and they made me take like 4 or 5 photos. Do they look good? And I was like, they had to look fine. And then they left.
Andrew's face when the one girl handed him the camera and went to stand with the other 3 was priceless.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm supposed to be over there, right?
Yeah.
What? Oh.
Do you know to this day,
Yes.
when people say, can I take a photo with you? I don't really say anything else, but absolutely, and just see what happens.
You get that pause.
And then they get next to me, and I'm like, okay. Now, after a show in a meet and greet line, I'm pretty confident
Yeah.
they want to take a photo of me,
Right.
but you just never know.
Never know.
Never
The funny
know.
ones are when you anticipate, and then they're like, oh no,
Yeah.
and then you feel worse. So I was signing something. I was in Minnesota doing my first almost sold out show, and I was signing something. I was like, do you want a photo? Like, no. I was like, oh yeah. What about to ruin your camera? Thank you so much.
When I was doing comedy regularly for the first 10 years,
Before you quit.
and then I quit because I love you and I
I
wanted
know.
to raise you correctly,
Yeah.
which obviously I
He
didn't.
quit because he had a kid.
Yep, I quit
You know,
because
there's millions of people that, well, not millions, but there's probably hundreds of thousands that have had kids in this industry and kept going.
Not so many, but
Yeah.
that's okay. But I decided
Plenty.
to not go on the road for 4 weeks at a time. But it is weird when somebody comes up and recognizes you or asks you for an autograph.
Mhm.
My first autograph was
Yeah,
at
it
the
is.
Funny Firm, and I was like, "What? Me? Why do you want my autograph?" I mean, you kind of get that the first time, but
Yeah.
somebody kept telling me that I had a show coming up in Rosemont, and I said, "No, I don't think so. I know if I'm booked somewhere." And they're like, "Yeah, you got
Yeah.
a show." I said, "No." And so we drove up to the club just check it out. And I go by Annivar, obviously for comedy shows. And what it was a big ass banner that had Saturday, March, whatever, anniversary show. I said, "Oh, you thought it said Annivar's sorry show. I get it now."
You know what's really funny is when I put the hashtags in and I start to do Annivar, it auto corrects to anniversary.
Yeah, I know. I get that.
It thinks we're talking about an anniversary.
Well, I'll plug this now. I got a show coming up February 24th at Jack's, JAK''S place in Chicago Ridge with a really funny guy, 2 funny guys, Kenny Savara and Bob J.
Oh, Bob
And
J.
Bob J.
Yeah.
We're gonna have Bob J on sometime. But Bob J.
Nice.
left me a voicemail to ask me if I was available for the show. And I'm sure when you listen, well, I don't know if your voicemail does, but it'll transcribe it. So the voicemail said, Annivar, it's Bob J. Looking to see if you're available February 24th for a gig. Call me back. But what the transcribed was antivirus. This is Bob J. So
because they don't know his name.
Antivirus.
Antivirus anniversary.
Antivirus. I get aardvark.
Aardvark.
I had a guy at a club. I did like 5 or 6 minutes. I said, anybody catch my name? And a guy yelled out, Enema!
Enema.
I'm like, I get it all. So anyway, I got Orland Park. We had to get a new dentist. And I'm sitting in the waiting room. And the dentist comes out and he says, Annivar Salgado. So I thought I'm going in. I raised my hand to go in. And he goes, did I say that right? I said, yeah. He goes, well, we're not ready for you. I just wanted to see the person who put, in case of emergency, call 911, comma, then my wife.
Yeah.
I said, I don't want you wasting 20 minutes talking to my wife, especially, I used to play basketball at the Y a lot, and I had at the Y. I said, the last thing you want to do is call my wife, because this is what you'll hear. Mr. Salgado, your husband's had an accident on the basketball court. I told him he should stop playing. I told him he should, at an age where he should start coaching. He shouldn't be playing with these young kids. I knew this was going to happen. It was inevitable. At some point, my husband was going to have a heart attack. I'm like, call 911. Get somebody here to help me.
The funniest part is this is the most accurate thing he's saying. My mom would probably pick it up and go, what do you mean? He's fine. My wife does that, man. If I was on the ground, the first thing my wife would say is, he's fine. He's just being dramatic. And I could be there, like what I already said. And she'd be like, I don't care. He's fine. I was in Italy because I know you don't know this. I sprained my left ankle. Right?
When you were in Italy?
We were walking. There's a million damn steps.
Yeah.
If you ever go to the Amalfi Coast, I recommend it. It's the greatest view I've ever seen. But everywhere you go was a couple miles of walking. And I had enough of it. And I twisted my left ankle, and my wife's like, let's go. You're fine. You barely twisted it. And I was like, oh. And then the next day, I'm recovering from my left ankle, and I twist my right ankle, and I was like, she won't let me heal either one of this. So somebody notices, oh, that man's hobbling. I'm like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Because my wife was like, you're gonna walk. We're not hiring. And if you've never been there, they drive like maniacs.
Worse than New York.
And the roads are so tiny. Like, it's one thing to drive like maniacs out here, where the roads are a lot wider than I've ever thought until I went to Italy.
A whole new perspective when you came home, right?
And then they have buses. They have buses that go on these tiny things, and these guys are just driving it.
The weirdest thing is the mopeds that the mopeds zip in and out of traffic like nothing.
Yeah,
they barely look to see if there's cars ahead, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's the scariest. Talk about living on the edge.
Well, I was in Italy in the Navy again, and my buddy and I were trying to cross this. It was 8 lanes of traffic. We're trying to cross, and every time we got on the street, cars were coming at like 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, it's
and all of a sudden,
ridiculous.
this little old lady comes by with a shopping cart. And she doesn't even hesitate. She just starts walking, and these cars are going around her, and we're looking at each other like, I guess that's what we got to do. He goes, what? I go, we got to wait for another old lady. And we got to walk with her. Because apparently they don't hit old ladies. So we literally waited for another lady with a shopping cart to come. We walked on either side of her. And these cars just kept going around us.
I saw no accidents. I saw 5,842 almost accidents.
Yeah.
But I saw
it's crazy.
I saw not a damn one. Every second of driving. And then we rented a car. It was this tiny little bug, man.
Yeah.
I was in the back seat. I could feel every turn that was happening, to the point of
That'd be a limo for me.
Like
I'd be like, wow, there's a lot of leg room in here.
Well, that's why he was so much more trouble than anyone else, is because his legs are so short, it took him twice as long to get across the street.
I mean, the good news is I'm the only guy that likes Spirit Airlines, because I don't need the leg room. And I like my doors staying on.
if there was an airline that could pop it off. I mean,
He must find it a problem, though, to have to keep that child seat at the driver's side.
It's tough. It's tough. It is. That's the hard part. When you've got to drive with a booster seat.
Because he has to ask me who drove today.
Yeah, I know. Well, you've got an SUV. That's a nightmare for him because it's like climbing into a truck for him.
First thing he said, God, this thing, how do you get in this?
Yeah. But thanks for being our first guest. We both knew that we wanted to get our feet down how to do this. And I don't feel like we have that either.
Well,
we probably need a year, but
to be honest, we just wanted to go alphabetical.
Yes, so there you go.
Andy and Bob.
Next we're gonna have Bob.
Carl.
Then we're gonna have Carl. Then David.
Elizabeth.
So
You can
Frank.
do first names or last names. In my case, it's both.
Either way.
Yes, AA. Yeah.
There you go. Well, thanks for
That
having
puts
me. It
you.
was
That
fun.
puts you in the top of all the meteorologists too. Andy
Yeah,
Avo.
there you go.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh, they're gonna
Yeah.
shoot through the sky now.
Well, we're at
Yeah,
25,000 right now.
Oh,
it's
way
only
before-
1
way
month
higher than that.
from start to finish. It's from the beginning. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I didn't. I wasn't sure
Thanks.
what the numbers would be. Well, because I know people would watch me, but I wasn't sure.
It took
if
me 2 months to
I didn't
get
think
him.
Andrew was a big draw.
It took me 2 months to get. Well, this is more for your career than it like helps mine.
Right, because at 69, I need a career.
Well, it's comedy.
I'm already
it's
a male
comedy
dancer
based.
for the blind. That's
Yes.
hard enough.
That's very hard to do. Yeah.
Oh, Lordy. That's why I say
do you
you
know-
can call him Dad.
Yeah. We talked about nothing fodder. Well, let's thank our guests for being here. Thank
you for having me.
Thank you,
My
Andy.
pleasure.
We'll have,
Andy
we'll have,
probably
we'll have him back, right?
Andy probably will be one of the few that is a very returning
I think
guest
we should
over
have
the
him
years.
back as a recurring segment.
I don't know about that.
Maybe.
but-
Do you want to come and do the weather?
I thought I used up all my. Yeah, here, I'll do the weather for you. And so
Well,
when people
look
ask
at-
me now, what the
just
weather
go to
is,
the-
I grab my phone and say, "Here, hang on a second, let me check." And there it is.
he defers to Tom Skilly now.
Yeah.
Like, well, Tom's retiring at the end of February.
Yes, he is.
Yes.
He's finally going to say adios, amigos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
There
an
he goes.
institution, that guy.
That's right.
We'd have him on, but we only have an hour.
That's right. And another one bites the dust. And another one gone. And another one gone. Another one bites the dust.
Yeah.
Well,
On that note,
yeah.
on that
thank
note,
you. Thank you for being here.
Well,
Once
thank him,
again.
and thank everybody for watching.
Yep.
We're doing pretty good for 3 shows. We're 3 shows in, right?
No, this is our 6th show.
wow.
Our
Okay.
sixth
And
show.
actually, we have 3 mini episodes, so it's
Wow.
actually really 9.
Do we have a mailing address? Send those 10s and 20s.
Yes. Yeah.
No, but we do have a place where people can ask comments. We're actually going to get to questions from people
Next time,
next time. Yeah, email
not from
at
animals, just from people. Like if someone's cat wants to ask you a question, that's not allowed.
I didn't mean to say it that way, but
Okay.
It's like when people say live band. I'm like, as opposed to a
That's right.
dead band. We have live musicians. Really?
you see how I
Not
told
comatose.
you when you first got here, I said I just fly by the seat of my pants because he just never stops.
That's what I said at my last comedy show. I asked people if they watched The Golden Bachelor, and some people had watched it, some people groaned, and I said, you know what's next? Bachelor in a coma. If you can wake him up, you can marry him.
Anywho, if you want to ask us a question and you're a person,
A live person.
go to email at canICallYouDad.com. You can also watch all episodes at canICallYouDad.com. And soon we'll be on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all those kind of wonderful things.
Yes, we will.
I think I said podcasts.
Podcast.
Podcast.
Are you from
yeah.
Spain?
Yeah.
No, it'll be podcast. You're on the podcast.
Podcast. You can watch our podcast on Apple Music, Apple Podcast, Spotify.
If you want to see us on the podcast, you go to Spain.
All right, folks. Thank you so much.